What was the boom factor for pre-construction from where it started to now?
That's a big question, a lot to unpack.
In 2025, what are we seeing right now?
I think now more than ever, it's important to have a realtor who's knowledgeable.
Is pre-construction still a good option?
That it is a long-term investment that you're making.
Have you ever wondered why some pre-construction buyers make six figures before the shovel even hits the ground, while others lose sleep and money? In 2025, the game has changed. Prices, policies, buyer confidence, it's all shifting. So how do you win in the new real estate landscape? Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Stella Talk Show, and I'm your host, Stella Ram. Today we are diving deep into the real truths of pre-construction real estate with someone who's been on the front line for over 2 decades. Jason Garland, a leader in sales and marketing since the Tridal and Plaza Court days. Now, shaping the skyline across the GTA, joins us to unpack the past, present, and what's next for Ontario's ever-evolving pre-construction market. Whether you are an investor, agent, or just real estate curious, this episode will shape how you see the future of housing. Tag a friend who needs to hear this, share it to your story, and let's get into it. This is Inspiring Lives, and the conversation starts right now. Hi Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
You're most welcome. So we were talking about pre-construction today. Historically, you've been in the industry for over 2 decades right now. Tell me what you have seen and where we are going right now.
Yeah, well, that's a big question, a lot to unpack. I started almost 26 years ago. And at that time, pre-construction sales, mostly in condos, was kind of foreign to a lot of buyers and investors and people coming into the market. So I started my career in downtown Toronto, and we were working in projects that were 12 stories and 15 stories and maybe 20 stories. And, we were roughly in the $225 per square foot, somewhere averaging at $250. Everything was under $300 a square foot.
Yeah. And
now you fast track today, and all of a sudden we're at 90 and 100-story buildings at 14, 15, 16, $2,000 a square foot. So obviously we've come a long way.
Yeah, we have, most definitely. And in the beginning, when we were introduced to pre-construction, like around the 2000s, who are the primary beneficiaries in this particular segment?
Yeah, do you mean in terms of buyers?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the most part, the investor group came into the market generally around 2006, 2007, and then the market started using outside brokers, and the market really took off from there. And we had such a huge increase, and Toronto as an international city wasn't really known on the global scale like it is today. We weren't seeing the population growth we were in today's rate, and things have progressed a long way. So this sort of investor really took advantage of the opportunity, especially over the last decade or so.
Yeah. So at that time, the investor was more keen in investing in pre-construction because they saw the landscape in the future.
Yeah, there was a lot of migration and immigration coming to Toronto, where we've seen a lot of pre-construction, and Vancouver and places like that. And a lot of people that were coming here came from bigger cities and understood kind of what it was like to live in condos. So they valued the condo lifestyle, and it took a little while for everybody to get caught up, and now it's quite a lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
it's
it
quite
is.
An urban nation.
Exactly. So if I was to ask you, what was the boom factor for pre-construction from where it started to now? What do you think it is?
The need for housing, I would say, would be such a high priority. 2 years ago, Canada accepted just over 1 million people into Canada. Last year was closer to 700,000. But my point is you have that many people coming into a country,
yes.
and GTHA gets typically around 40% of that. So that's a huge amount of demand for not enough housing. So that would be probably the biggest driving factor. And then obviously you have things like a good economy and safe banking policies and that kind of thing.
Yeah, most definitely. That's interesting. So from where we saw that boom happen and what's happening in the markets right now, in 2025, what are we seeing right now?
The market has softened a little bit, right? In terms of where we were, a little bit. That's an understatement, certainly. But we've come from, in this quarter, we're in almost in June 2025, and then the first quarter of this year, we've only done just over 400 deals altogether in the pre-construction market, only 2 launches, and that's a far cry from where we are on a 10-year average, a 15-year average. So it's a little more challenging right now. So we've got to come up with ways to restart the not the economy, but the sales process.
Sales process, yeah. So when you think about the current economy, as you mentioned, it's the uncertainty in buyers' psychology that's affecting the current market, right?
Yeah.
Based on what we have seen with the roller coasters we had in interest rates, and also now the trade fears upon us as well.
Yeah.
But we still see the sales are happening where it needs to happen. Especially investors are very keen about that. CMHC-MLI is actually influencing that a little bit here and there. We are seeing that as well. So what are some of the strategies or buyer mentalities that you can see in the current forecast?
I like to separate sort of the investor from a couple of different groups. One, you have this sort of long-term investor that's going to invest in anything in real estate, and sort of following a Warren Buffett trend, versus what's happened since 2012, 13, 14, and all the way to 2021 is there was a lot of speculative purchasers, which is sort of a short-term view on investing in real estate, which has not been my approach or an approach that I like to follow or educate. I think it's a long-term approach that you got to be looking for. So the speculative buyer, speculative investor has sort of stopped for now. And I think you have to figure out how to, whether it's through policies or through education, you need to help people understand, or buyers understand, that it is a long-term investment that you're making, and look out not 5 years, but 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and look at that sort of strategy.
Yeah, so anybody who's thinking of buying and holding for some time, they might see the cash flow coming in the way that they want to in the future. Yeah,
that's right. And my father, who was, working in the industry in 1990 and the 89, 1990, 1991, and sort of saw that crash happen. But the people who sold back then sort of are regretting it today, because their investments or their homes at that time would be far more valuable than they are even if you held on to them that long. But that short-term speculative buyer is going to be challenged right now.
Exactly, that's what I'm hearing as well. So when it comes to the builders side of things, like what are the builders doing at this time to overcome any barriers that they're facing in today's market?
I think a couple of things. So one, they have to work with the lenders. That's number one. There's very few builders, if any, can build without lending. So they've got to work with creative ways, whether it's through deposits or policies that they can get through to allow them to build faster. So helping them with the deposits as well. Like Toronto and GTHA has really been sort of spoiled the lenders and the banking system a little bit, because for the rest of Canada, they're not looking for 20 or 25% prior to occupancy. So in some of the other provinces, they're looking at 10% or 11% or 15%. So working on some of those inventive strategies that can help them get to the finish line, because we do need housing.
Yes.
And the builders are the ones who are building the housing. So how can we get through the red tape, number one? So that's a lot of municipal and federal red tape that they could maybe stop.
Yeah.
Not stop, but mitigate. And then you need to work with the lenders and try and come up with creative ways to build these buildings.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And that's an example of what we are seeing in the market right now. Like a lot of the builders, they're coming up with these creative incentives to influence buyers to get into the market and take advantage of favorable pricing, favorable down payment structures, and so forth. So I think they are in the game and they're trying to do their best with the lenders and also with the buyers at this time.
Yeah, I think it's important to get the housing to the people that need it. And one of the other things that builders want to do right now is instead, for a long time, the 200 suite building and 300 suite building was the largest. And now you're getting buildings that are, whole towns and whole villages, vertical villages, that are 100 stories and 1,000 suites.
Wow.
So maybe lowering the density and sort of creating a more boutique style building. The other thing they can do right now is that there is, for the longest time, probably since 2009 to 2018 or so, you were building micro condos. And really, we built a lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of studios, 350 square feet, 450 square feet. And now what people need is affordable housing for their homes, for families, and that's 3 bedrooms, right? Larger square footages, maybe starting at 900 square feet up to 1,500 or 1,600 square feet. Because maybe the affordability for the house in the downtown core is not obviously on par with the condos.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's absolutely right. So that's it's very interesting when you're talking to the buyers who are interested in pre-construction in today's market. The conversations are very different every single time. Yeah. Some people are very interested in taking advantage of the incentives the builders are giving them, and some are very skeptical as to why are we having these incentives? What does this actually mean for us in the future, right? So having meaningful conversation with the builder, with your salesperson who's helping you, that's actually what you need at this time to plan that your goals, the buyer's goals, in other words, for a successful future.
I think now more than ever, it's important to have a realtor who's knowledgeable, who understands the market, who listens, and who isn't transactional based, like yourself, right? Somebody who can help educate and understand what people's why are, what the reason for them purchasing is, whether it be home or school district or family scenario, whatever the case may be, but understanding what their why is, why they're purchasing, and helping navigate through the best option for them, whether it be resale or pre-construction, right? There's tons. I was talking to a friend just the other day about the amount of supply and completions that are happening. So Toronto's completed around 35,000 suites over the past 15, 16 months.
Yes.
But now the amount of sales that are happening, the amount of starts that are happening, 2 years ago we had 215 cranes in the air, and now we have 80, right? So the amount of completions that are happening right now is declining, going to decline again next year, which leaves a ton of room for opportunity for purchasers to get into the market over the next 12, 16, 18 months, and take advantage of the opportunity that, like you said, builders are offering great incentives. And they want to build, right? They're getting to 50, 60%, and they need to get over a threshold to finish the building. And so they are offering great incentives.
Yeah, no, that's true. I have a question. So when it comes to, I know when we initially started pre-construction era from early 2000s, at that time, we didn't really have a foreign buyer ban, but then we have that came into place. What did that do to the market, and how did the pre-construction industry, revolve around that?
Yeah, I think if you really dive into the numbers a little more, it didn't have as big an impact as a lot of people think. It wasn't necessarily a lot of foreign money coming over and purchasing all the condos. That's not really the case. It was a lot of people who had money here who built up not necessarily generational wealth, but some wealth, and through purchasing their house or their home, you know, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and some of them bought it for, you know, $50,000 or $150,000, and now they're worth what they are, and to help jumpstart their kids' life, they might buy a condo. So it's really that, maybe that first investor, and then they realized how much money they made, and they made another investment. So what has happened in 2021 and 2020 is that you had this repeat investor that made a lot of money in the pre-construction. So it wasn't necessarily a lot of foreign banning the foreign buyer tax banning the foreign buyers wasn't necessarily a catalyst for where we are today.
Understand. That's amazing.
That was a long way of answering that.
Shifting gears a little bit, like I want to ask you, in today's buyer, if somebody is thinking about starting a new family, or like they're moving into the city and, you know, trying to avoid renting, is pre-construction still a good option for them?
Well, it's an interesting question, because typically if you're looking to move into the city and you're, you know, 5 years out from purchasing, pre-construction is a good option. But why it doesn't necessarily work for a lot of families and a lot of people, first-time home buyers, is because they don't necessarily know where they're going to be in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, right? So that can be a little challenging, and understanding that. So there are pre-construction opportunities in terms of whether it's standing inventory or assignments, or there's ways to get into the market that you can look at instead of just purchasing out of a launch.
Yeah, no, that's true. But based on your motives, there are still good options available for you.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I want to talk, like right now, there's a big buzz about assignment sales. I just want to touch base on that. So I know, like, you know, a few years ago, the market was doing really well. So the prices were on that scale. And now we see a little bit of a dip. And now anybody's closing right now, they're stressing over assignment sales, or like people are trying to take advantage of that too. So what are you seeing in your point of happening there?
Yeah, well, I think what is happening right now is there's a couple of things. One is the resale price per square foot on the condo market specifically, and the pre-construction price per square foot. There was a very large gap in 2021, 2022, and 23, and it's starting to close a little bit. So that's going to make it easier for people to more palatable for people to purchase within a pre-construction condo, because the gap is much closer. And for assignments, our unsold inventory right now is typically hovering around just under $1,200 a square foot, and the pre-construction sales are hovering just over $1,300 a square foot. And the assignment sales are going to lean towards the unsold inventory, and even below that. So if you've got cash, it's a great way to get in. One of the challenges with assignments is the fact that you need a larger deposit typically, because you need to cover the deposit of the original purchaser and what they gave, and then generally there's a bit of an uptick in whatever the value is today.
That's what I see too. Like, you know, anytime that who's interested in getting that advantage of the price point, they need to come up with that total down payment up front. That's the challenge that they're having.
For sure. But in terms of price, if you do have cash, it is a great opportunity.
It is.
It kind of goes back a little bit to the speculative buyer. You know, if they were sold on a short-term gain to try and flip the pre-construction properties before the closings, and they didn't really have the money to close the property, and their realtor was like, hey, just get into the market, don't worry, it's going to be up. And now all of a sudden they've got a product that's below the value that they purchased it for, and now they're desperate. There are some opportunities there where people probably, you know, maybe were guided in the wrong direction or educated in the wrong way, and now are trying to get out of their their purchases. So, your money can go a long way that way.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's the basic. Thanks for sharing that, because these are things that you don't really hear when you talk about assignment sales or pre-construction, because right now it's the fear factor that is in the forefront, right? So you just have to see past that and look at the opportunities based on individual goals, of course, right? Because everybody's goals are different, and as you mentioned before, based on that, talking to someone who is an expert in the industry and asking their guidance towards that journey will be much appreciated. Yeah, most definitely. And I want to also touch base, based on what we have seen in the past with assignment sales and what we are seeing right now. What are some of pivoted moments that you see right now?
Okay, there's two things. The main difference between what assignment sales were, 3, 4, 5 years ago,
yes,
is that typically they were assigning for more than what they purchased for. So that's where things started. This frenzy started happening.
Yes.
And you're like, hey, we can buy these things, not close on them, sell for a profit, go on and try and do it again. Some of the people that are trying to do it again now are kind of getting burnt a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. The second part of that is some of the condos are not necessarily appraising for what they originally purchased for, which makes it challenging for people to close. So therefore, there's people that need to get out of their purchases. Typically, they're not their own homes. Their primary residence. But they've got to figure out a way to close the deal or assign it.
Assign it.
I don't think that answered your question.
It kind of did. But you almost touched, because as you mentioned before, that's kind of where I wanted to touch on. Previously when you're talking assignment sales, you're actually cashing out more than what you invested into it as the purchaser, right? But right now that's not the case. That's the dip in the price that's affecting it.
And I think it really depends on the location as well, right? There's still lots of B and C markets that have done very well and that aren't necessarily having the challenges that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. So you can see some are thriving, like the ones that is actually if you see downtown Toronto, I see many projects that's even being built right now. They're already doing amazing, right? And there are some projects not in the GTA but a little bit outside. It's taking a little bit of time than what it was anticipating, right? But however, as long as there's a supply and demand, there's a gap that the Canadian government and also these builders are trying to meet, right? So as long as the demand is going to there, pre-construction is going to be still a valuable guideline or a pathway to get into housing and start building that from where you can. With the incentives that the builders are offering right now, and that's exactly the conversations with the buyers, prospects that we're having, is hey, if you don't have the down payment, you have these amazing down payment strategies. I have seen builders even doing monthly payment strategies these days, which doesn't really happen when we were in the high end of peak, right? And also even getting access into some of the projects was very tricky, and it was a huge wait list. But right now you have easy access because the builders are willing to work with you, and that you do have the space of negotiation and getting the benefits to your side, and also having a legal eye on top of that. Getting your contract reviewed by your lawyers within those 15 days of cooling off period will definitely give you more confidence on what you're signing up and what you're getting yourself into for the future.
I think you're making a great point. For people that can't necessarily come up and purchase a home right away, pre-construction offers a extended deposit structure, some as long as 2 years on whether it be monthly, like you just mentioned, and it gives you an opportunity to get into the market. I heard you say on one of your podcasts, it's on one of your other episodes, it's not how long you've been in the market. No, wait, hold on. It's not waiting to get into the market, it's getting into the market and waiting.
Yes.
Right? It's about the length of time you can get into the market.
Yeah.
And the one thing about pre-construction sales is it allows you to buy into a project. Let's say you bought today, for example, you're locking in that price at today's rate and then waiting 4 or 5, sometimes 6 years for that project to be finished. But in the meantime, you're saving up more down payment, you're making deposits, it gives you a forced savings, meaning you're paying into your own purchase.
That's true. It's a good strategy to have if that strategy works for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to ask, you work really close with builders, and I know that you have worked with many different builders throughout history right now, almost 3 decades, right? Tell me a little bit of your experience as to what you have seen and as to how builders are focusing or functioning previously and how they're adapting in today's economy to match what the demand is.
I would say the number one thing builders are talking about right now is getting away from the micro suites and moving into more livable square footages. Like even on the rental demand right now, you can look at buildings in the downtown core where the average square footage might be a little higher, but then the rents per square foot are higher.
Yes.
So for the longest time, we were selling studios and micro 1 bedrooms, and they were the highest price per square foot on the projects, right? But now on the rental market, they're getting the lower price per square foot and have a higher months of inventory right now for their sales. Like you might be in 10, 11, 12 months of inventory in the micro suites in a 1 bedroom or a 1 bedroom and den or a studio, whereas the 2.5 bedroom and 3 bedroom might have 5 months of inventory or 4 months of inventory. So there's a big discrepancy there. But even on the rental market, on the studios, you might be across the board at $4 a square foot, $4.50 a square foot, where your 3 bedrooms and 2 bedroom and dens are getting $5.50 a square foot or $6 a square foot, right? So I think the builders are looking towards building larger square footages, more livable square footages, and filling the gap of the missing middle, which means getting smaller boutique style buildings, maybe 200 suites and under, where you can get the sales threshold that you need to get and the sales velocity you need to get, right? We came from 70% absorption rates to last year, you know, we're getting in around 30%, and most recently it's been 9, 10, 11% absorption rates, and the 10-year average is hovering just over 50%.
Yeah, okay, that's amazing. And have you seen any notable projects around the GTA at this time that, you know, you see, okay, that's exactly what the builders needs to be doing at this time?
Great question. I think any developer that is going to look at what the gap, filling a gap of the buyer's needs, is going to have the right ingredients and the right recipe for success.
Yes.
Yeah, without putting a bunch of names out there.
Yeah, no, I understand. I agree. It's always good to keep the names away. Okay, let's change the lens a little bit, Jason.
Okay.
Well, so when it comes to pre-construction, I don't want to only focus on what's happening in Toronto or in the GTA at this time. I want to talk about the opportunities that is, you know, out there in Rust, right?
Sure.
So I have seen a lot of people like snowbirds. People are retiring. They're talking about taking the money and investing in Caribbean, like, you know, in Dominican Republic, Mexico, vacation homes and things like that.
Sounds like you're following me on Instagram.
Yeah. No, you never know. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, you know, where do you think that's going at this time?
Yeah, I think there's, because of what you were talking about earlier, not necessarily people living in fear, but people are skeptical of what can be offered in the GTHA. And there are some amazing opportunities out there. But if you want to look abroad, or you want to look in the Caribbean islands, for example, and look for cash flow positive, a lot of the GTHA investors were not only just banking on the cash flow, but the capital appreciation, which was the main driver for a lot of the investors, right?
Yeah.
But the cash flow over the past 5 or 6 years has kind of got dried up to the point where they're underwater, a lot of the properties. But if you can look, and we're representing a couple of properties in Dominican Republic right now where the price tag is much lower, where you might be in 189,000 USD, but your cash flow and ROIs are up at 8 to 12, 15% with a high cash flow of maybe $1,800 to $2,200 a month. Some incredible opportunities
That's
out
amazing,
there.
yeah.
And because a lot of what's happening down just south of the border, no matter which way you vote, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty. So people are bringing their money out of some of the southern states and moving it into opportunities like the DR as one example. But we've got some great options.
Yeah, no, I say that. That's why I follow you on Instagram, right? No, I see that, and I'm even some of the conversations I'm having, people will so what does that look like? Will that allow me to plan for my retirement because I love the beach, right? These are conversations that's happening right now. So if you do see that's in your forecast of goals, that opportunity is still viable and it's definitely doing what it needs to do.
I think we need a whole episode just on some of the other properties, because I would love to come back and talk about that specifically, but the reality is some of the properties that we're selling are full condo ownership. So it's not like purchasing a timeshare or anything like that. The entry price is much lower than you might find just down the street from here at 5, 6, 800,000. So the sticker price is much lower. The level of entry is much lower. And the build out, because they're much smaller properties, you're looking at 50 suites in this building, or 100 in this building, or 30 in this building. The turnaround time, you're not waiting 5, 6 years to get the cash flow out of it, and you're getting it in 18 months or 24 months. Plus they have some incredible incentives for buyers and for realtors.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why you need to have a conversation with you, Jason, right? So as you mentioned, I know right now in our hometown, it may or may not be what you are looking at, but outside, it's a global world right now. Opportunity is everywhere. If you want to focus and you talk to the right experts like yourself, who has access to these amazing projects, information that you need to educate yourself on so you can make informed decisions.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think it's important to have somebody like you in their corner, helping guide them, and really spending a lot of time listening to what they need out of their investments. Or let's face it, even just buying a home for your family, it's still an investment. It's still probably the largest purchase you're ever going to make in most people's lifetime. Right?
Yeah, most definitely. So I want to talk about what's next for pre-construction. In your opinion, you've been in the industry for so long, and you have seen it all, I would say. So what do you think we are anticipating to see? What's next?
Great question. And let me just pull out my crystal ball here to find out. I think a couple of things. I think the number one thing that's going to happen is construction starts are going to slow down. They've already started. Sales are going to start to slow down. They've already started. And there's going to be a surge of need for housing in 2029, 2030, and beyond. So right now, there's going to be months of inventory, like we were just talking about, on the resale and pre-construction markets. So I think there's a huge opportunity right now to look at the future into 2029 and 2030 and 2031 and beyond. As long as it's a long-term investment, there's some great opportunities out there to take advantage. So for now, for the next couple of years, I think it's going to be a softer market with the sales a little slower, the starts a little slower, and then there's going to be a huge ramp up. The other thing that's going to happen is a lot of the pre-construction condo big boys are going to move into the purpose-built rental market. And I think there's going to be a huge surge in the starts for purpose-built rentals. Toronto as a whole has been, for all the big global international cities, not necessarily the norm, right? It's not an entitlement to own here.
Yeah.
And typically on a rent to own, it's around 50-50.
Yes.
But you look at, Manhattan and New York, it's probably 80% of the population, closer to 80, 85% of the population that rent. And the other 20 or 15% that own.
Yeah.
It's not an entitlement here, but I believe that everybody wants to own. I think it's important to do what you can to own. It depends on lifestyle, and we can get into the differences between renting and buying and the freedoms and all that stuff. Say that for another episode too.
Yeah, for sure. It's based on where your importance are and your goals are at, right? Most definitely. But I want to say this again, having those conversations, getting educated, having a strategy, writing down your goals and how you can take advantage of current markets. If that's possible, go ahead and take it, right? Grasp the opportunity, because, the opportunities don't come all the time.
People are still investing, like the big investors, the pension funds and people like that. They're still fully invested and investing in pre-construction. And there's some developers out there, and talking about knowing your why and listening to what their goals are. There are some opportunities out there to invest into real estate funds that purchase developments and build residential. So if that's your goal and you just want to invest and not necessarily live, you want to rent for whatever reason, but you want to invest in real estate because you believe in bricks and mortar, there are developers out there that you can invest in their fund and they will develop, and you will take advantage of their proceeds, of the collective proceeds.
That's amazing. So there's a lot of opportunities out there still to grasp, most definitely. So may I ask, how might the government policies and economic factors influence the future developments?
What? Sorry, say it again.
So how might the government policies and economic factors influence the future developments in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the government definitely can do a few things, like policies, like maybe in Toronto specifically, or Ontario, is helping out with the development charges, the DCs. Like, they could put a freeze on them, they could lower them in each different district and municipality. They could lower them. They have already started in some cases, but they can go even further. They can fast track the lower the amount of red tape, or fast track your development to get it finished quicker, so that you can deliver more product, more housing faster to the market. You can also talk about lending procedures and being more creative about the lending, so that people have more opportunities. Yeah,
most definitely. Thank you very much, Jason, for taking the time today and sharing and answering all my questions. But I want to end this with this, there's a saying, when everybody is greedy, be fearful, and everybody is fearful, be greedy. So we are at that stage right now.
Wow.
Right? So we have to move with the education, with strategy. Most definitely the potential is still there. So anybody who's saying the pre-con market is not doing well, that's not be the case for every single person, and also not for every single builder, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so talk to your realtor, give us a call. Jason is available. I'm going to leave Jason's information on the bio as well. Or me, give me a call directly. We can book a call, have a conversation about what your goals are, and we can plan together to achieve those goals together. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Wow, what a masterclass in today's pre-construction real estate game. A massive thank you to Jason Garland for pulling back the curtain on the strategies, risk, and real-world insights that buyers, agents, and investors needs to hear in 2025. From assignment sales to builder pivots and where the market's headed next, this is the kind of conversation that doesn't just inform, it equips you to move smarter. Now it's your turn. What was your biggest takeaway? Drop it in the comments, DM us, or better yet, repost this episode to your story with your favorite quote or insight. Tag a friend who's thinking about getting into pre-con, or someone who needs to understand what's really happening out there. Your voice matters, and it could be the spark that inspires someone else to take action or pivot wisely. And if you love this episode, don't forget to hit follow, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your community. More powerful guests and real talks are coming your way. This is Inspiring Lives, where stories meet strategy and legacies are built, one conversation at a time. Until next time, stay bold, stay smart, and stay inspired.
Thank you for spending your time with us on the Stellar Talk Show. We hope you found value in today's episode and gained insights to help elevate your lifestyle. If you enjoyed the discussion, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who could benefit. It means the world to us. Until our next episode, stay inspired, and I'll see you soon on our next Stellar Talk Show.